Welcome back to Session 3 of Flourishing Family, where we're going to talk about priorities and what we value in our families.
Yeah, and I think making sure you have the right priorities is key. It's critical, and it's worth spending some time really mapping those out. My wife she was an elite soccer player, middle school, high school. She was really, really good. And yet her mom and dad had a priority that sunk deep into her heart. And then she's helped bring that into our family as well. Tell a little bit about that.
So my mom would always say, honor the Lord and he'll honor you. So as a rule, no matter what, I didn't play soccer on Sunday mornings. And that was hard. My mom was my middle school Sunday school director, and I would sit in the back of the room and cry because at the time I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. But as an adult, what's more important in my life, my relationship with Jesus Christ, or that I didn't play in a soccer game when I was a teenager? So I'm just so glad that, like all of us, we learn when we're older that our parents were right. And I've, put this lesson on our children too.
And it wasn't easy all the time. If you're sitting in the room there crying, it's because at times your teammates are like, why can't you be here? And your coach is like, why can't she be here? So there's pressure that goes along with that. But when we honor the Lord, he honors us, which is a great promise from his word. Hey, we're jumping into Session 3, and let's welcome Ben and Kelly. And thank you for joining us, guys. All right.
Hey, welcome back to Flourishing Family. We're here for Session 3. We're going to have a lot of fun with this one. I want to start off with a question. From your childhood, what was your favorite trophy that you ever earned? Your favorite trophy? Who's got a mic? Who wants to share the favorite trophy that you have? Maybe it's in your attic now. Start with Daniel.
Well, actually, I had many trophies.
Nice.
Not just one. I was an athlete of athletes. My football trophy, all state and all state track.
Wow.
But I think my favorite one was the one that my brother broke on purpose because he was jealous.
Oh.
And and that was another football trophy.
Oh, man. I bet that caused a little conflict in the home.
Yeah, he got beat up, I think.
Anybody else get a trophy when you were a kid? You got one, Chris?
Yeah, so when I was in elementary school, 4th grade or something, I did a basketball camp and I got the most valuable camper trophy. So I was pretty proud of that. But I also got another one that I might have been happiest to win because it came with money. Oh. I was a knockout champion.
Nice. Nice. Oh, I love knockout. You got one too, Courtney?
Okay, so every summer, my parents would take us to the OK Bowlers League, Oriental Kids Bowlers League, and we'd all get a bowling trophy. But they'd have your highest score on the trophy, so my scores just kept going up. So those are the best trophies.
That is awesome. So we got bowling, we got basketball, we got football. Anybody else, you get a trophy when you were a kid? Jennifer?
Well, my senior year in soccer, after playing for years and years, I finally got a trophy that said most improved.
Hey, that's so good. Well, a few weeks ago, I was cleaning out my garage and I ran across a box full of old trophies, actually from my childhood. I didn't realize we still had them, but when we moved, they somehow just ended up in the garage. And I found them there, and I found my old Pinewood Derby trophy. Any of you guys remember Pinewood Derby? Yeah. I found an old baseball trophy and a couple old soccer trophies. And about that time, I'm looking at these trophies, and my 7-year-old, he comes in the garage and he sees what I'm doing, and he just thought these trophies were the coolest thing ever, right? And he's like, wow, And so I ended up giving him one. I dusted it off. It was a soccer trophy. I'm like, here, buddy, you can keep this and put it in your room. And it just made his day, right, to be able to have one of Dad's trophies. And here's the thing, guys, with trophies, is trophies remind us of what pursuits in our past that we have deemed worthy of our attention and our investment. They really represent where our time and our money and our energy has gone. Those trophies reminded me to pause and take a look at where are my priorities lying today, and what is it that I'm pursuing today in this stage of life, and the balancing the pressure of making a living and raising a house full of kids. It's so easy to let our priorities get misaligned, right? It's so easy to start chasing after the wrong trophies. And so we must frequently revisit the question of, how do we measure success? What do we call a trophy or a triumph? And what is it that we're really living for? I love a passage in the Old Testament that gives us a really good overall compass for keeping our focus where it needs to be. You guys may remember this verse. It comes from Joshua 24. The leader by the same name, as he's addressing God's people, he says this, "Now therefore, fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and faithfulness. Put away the gods that your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. And if it is evil in your eyes to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your fathers served beyond the river, the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell." And listen to this. Joshua makes this proclamation. He says, "But for me," right? "For my house, we will serve the Lord." I love that commitment because it speaks to, how we're going to define what is a win and what trophies we're chasing after. The context here is Joshua is leading the people through a sort of covenant renewal ceremony at the end of this long journey to conquer the land of Canaan. And he's saying basically, look, guys, after all we've been through, it's time for you all to make a decision. Are you going to put God first or not? Joshua's saying, look, I've made up my mind. I'm going to lead my family. This is what I'm going to do. For me and my house, we're going to prioritize the Lord's will and the Lord's way. And so I want to challenge us as today we're thinking about flourishing family, to just take time to make that same decision, to hit pause for a few moments and reassess where our priorities are and our allegiances are and bring them back into alignment under the lordship of Christ and making God and his glory the most important thing in our family. And so what does that really look like? How do we do that in a practical way in our everyday life? Well, what we want to give you are three principles. The first is this. It's church over clubs. Church over clubs. The reality is there's no shortage of fun and meaningful activities for our kids today. We've got sports, we've got cheer, we've got dance, we've got music, we've got art, and these are good things, right? There's nothing wrong with those things. Those are things that we enjoy letting our kids participate in, and every parent is eager to sign their kid up for whichever club or class that we think they may thrive in and they may excel in, and it is fun to watch them win. But here's the thing. If we very subtly allow all these extracurriculars to take over our lives and squeeze our time for spiritual community, as a family, we're headed for troubled waters. And so the principle is this. It's church over clubs. And so I want to be the bad guy here, and I want to be the one to break it to you. But statistically speaking, it is phenomenally unlikely that your kid is going to play Major League Baseball, right? It's just very, very unlikely. But the reality is, while he's not likely to need the fastest, fastball in town to equip him for life, what he for sure does need to learn, what she for sure does need to learn is how to follow Jesus and how to live in community with other believers. That is an unmistakable reality that our kids need to grow up seeing and experiencing, that we value the body of Christ as the most primary place of belonging in our community and in our lives. And so mom and dads, let me just challenge you today. Hey, listen, get those kids to church. Get them there regularly and faithfully. Corporate worship and fellowship and the preaching of God's word for your pastor and discipleship and meaningful relationships and mission within the local church, it should be the biggest rock in the jar of our priorities, and all the other little pebbles fit around it. So that's the first principle. It's church over clubs. Let's talk about the second one.
I just want to share a little story about our daughter, Allie. She played volleyball last year. She was really good. I did not know I was a volleyball mom. I loved it. I was very competitive, and, it was getting time to sign up this year in February. And I was like, Allie, it's time to sign up for volleyball tryouts. And she's like, I don't think God wants me to do that this year. And I was like, are you sure? Because it was just so much fun watching her and her teammates. And anyway, she just, I think God wants me to use that money for missions. And so she went on 2 mission trips this summer, 2 more in the spring. And so we just really are proud of, how she's letting God lead her. Not that everyone's led to not do sports, but she's listening to what God is telling her.
That's so good. Yeah, let's talk about the second principle here.
So the second principle is commands over culture. The culture in which we live is an ever-increasing conflict with the commands given to us by God. The will and the way of the God of the Bible will leave you out of step with the world if you walk in it. We must teach our kids that to follow Christ faithfully, we are going to look a little different or a lot different from the world around us. And we are not going to be just like some of our friends. Joshua said it powerfully, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Parents, there are going to be a lot of conversations you must have with your kids where you must explain to them the why behind your decisions and way of living. The answer is because God said, or God's leading our family that way. When we begin to make God's commands central to our lives, choices become so much clearer as we seek to decide what to say yes or say no to. Remember, the commands of God are not burdensome, but they are the way of life and freedom.
Sorry.
When we walk in God's commands, we are free from the entanglements of so many traps this world sets for our family, and we are found in the safety and security of being in the center of God's will. Yeah. So parents, instead of using the old line, because I said so, let's teach our kids a line, because God said so.
Yeah. I like to use that one, because I said so, but it's God's way, right? It's not mine. So let me give you the third principle. It's this: generosity over greed. Now this one is going to sting a little because it involves our money, right? But the truth is, finances are a leading indicator of the spiritual health of a family. There's this old saying that goes, follow the money, right? You follow the money. And so where our money is spent is indicative of what trophies we are striving for. And our kids really are watching and absorbing our financial worldview in our home and our habits more than we realize. And they're beginning to form their own views of what money is and what it's for by watching us and seeing what we prioritize. If what they see is this never-ending pursuit of more and better material gain, then that is going to leave a lasting impression upon them about what success looks like. However, if what they see is consistent obedience to give and to sacrifice for others and generosity regarding the things that matter most, then their worldview on possessions is going to be biblically formed. And so parents, one of the biggest mistakes that we can make is to let our kids think the whole world revolves around them, right? That they're the center of the universe. And one of the ways we unintentionally clearly communicate that is through our money. And so let me challenge you to give your kids a front row seat to the kind of lifestyle of biblical generosity. Give them opportunities to give something up for themselves so that they have something to give away to someone else in need. This principle will change them for the better. So let me ask you today, guys, what trophies are you living for? What are the priorities that are truly, genuinely in place in your life? What would your calendar say about that? What would your task managing app on your phone say about that, right? Where is our time really going? What would your banking app indicate about where your priorities are aligned? How would your neighbor answer the question of what it is that you're all about and what your priorities are? Are you living a selfless life and inviting the kids with you to live a selfless life in front of your neighbor? Do you have that reputation of being different from others because you are leading your household to walk in the ways of the Lord? And so let me challenge you today, like Joshua, to draw a line in the sand and just say with conviction what Joshua said those many years ago: as for me, as for my house, we will serve the Lord. So guys, as we're talking about trophies and triumphs and really trying to align our priorities, I wanted to ask you guys, just in a practical way, how have you tried to balance this idea between kids' secular activities and keeping them really engaged in spiritual community, with a family that's busy? Let's start with the Finches. Robert and Allison, you have something to share.
Yeah, so we do have 5 children, and when our oldest was going into 6th grade, we really wanted church life to be part of their everyday life. And so we were going to a church that we had to drive through a lot of traffic to get to. And when she was going into youth group, we decided to move to this church, which we can actually walk to. And so our kids had the opportunity to be at church whenever they could, and they are taking it on their own. We don't tell them they have to, but it's available and they're doing it.
I love that.
Exciting.
I love that. I love it when the kids start to own that vision. So Robert, what would you add?
Yeah, I would add that one of the biggest things that we've had to learn and do is say no.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of opportunity for kids to get involved in things, and sports and scouting can be 2 to 3 touches per week. And with 5 kids, that's a lot of that's a big commitment, and it pulls you away from, you know, keeping the Sabbath kind of sacred.
I love that.
Available.
I feel like it took me a long time to learn how to say no to things. So it's such a good reminder. Yeah. Let's go back here to the Woodfields.
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback off of Robert's point, because it was the Finches and a couple other mentors of ours that led us in this direction when we've been kind of faced with the same crossroads of, do we do these activities, which are great. I love sports, love all the things that our communities are in, but it comes with a price. And so I remember just hearing Robert saying how they said no, and he used examples of his daughter, especially on Sundays, they just said no. And so Stephanie and I, we were just kind of amazed at what a young age these things start popping up at. I mean, even from the time they're 2 or 3 years old, you kind of
pressure there.
Yeah, you get caught up in that rat race and keeping up, and oh no, are they falling behind? And you know, we had a ton of these conversations, and we ultimately just made a really tough decision that we as a couple just weighed on and prayed on for quite a while, of just canceling and saying no to everything. When our third kid was born, you know, their friends were out doing baseball, soccer, great stuff, and we just sat at home. We played in the backyard for, you know, a third of the year.
I love that. You chose to be healthy as a family in that moment. Stephanie, what would you add?
I would say that we're in a community group with a lot of families that also have really young kids, and we have a mentor couple that are there with us to share their perspective also. But it really helps to be with other families who are in the same life stage and seeing each other and checking in every Sunday, and then also doing, you know, play dates together and a mom's night out and a dad's night out. And it just makes it easier, because when you're saying no, there are going to be other people who are making similar life choices.
Yeah.
So then your kid doesn't feel like they're so left out, because there are at least a couple other people, you know, who are making similar choices.
That's so good. It's all about community. You know, thankfully here in the group today, we have some of our folks who help serve us parents in ministry with our children's ministry and our youth ministry. And I'd love to hear your perspectives as you try to serve our kids in the church. How do these tensions push and pull on families?
Sure, kids are super busy all the time. The hard part is when we're allowing sports to be more important, kids, they aren't coming to church, so they're missing church. When they come back, they feel a little less comfortable. They feel a little less connected to other kids. Yeah. And once that happens over a season, before you know, your kids don't want to come back because they don't have a lot of friends. They don't feel connected. And then you're in a fight. You're in a fight because you've allowed it to go on, and it's become a habit. And then it becomes really hard, and then it becomes a fight. Yeah. And that's really hard to see happen.
Yeah, we don't want to be in that place, right? Like, we don't want it to be a fight to get our kids to church. And so that's so good, Jennifer. Jenny, you work with our students, a little bit older kids, teenagers. What does this look like?
No, it's the same thing. They get disconnected, so then they're not connected to their friends or, you know, community or leaders or anything. So they're disconnected. And then as a family, you're showing that your priority is over the clubs and not church. And so they're being hurt that way as well. And I made the same decision as a parent as well. My boys were involved with baseball and football, and yeah, you want to go and cheer mom, but you're like, no, church is more important. You're going to have plenty of time to do all those practices and games.
That's so good. You know, it's not that we have to be like 100% legalist about it, right? But it's just, where are the priorities? You know, where's the big rock in the jar? And I think, Amelia, you had more of a parent's perspective, right?
Yes, definitely a parent. Our kids are 4, 8, and 12.
Yeah.
So they participate in the youth group. They participate in the children's ministry. And we're busy. Like, they go to piano. They have all sorts of responsibilities, 3 different age ranges. And this has come out of the mouth of my 12-year-old. She said, Wednesday is my favorite day of the week. Wow. And Wednesday is that day of the week that doesn't matter how busy we are. We make the time, knowing that we'll get home at least at 8 p.m., that we set aside the time to take them to choir, take them to their youth group. And she recognized at that young age, she recognizes that she can go to school, she can participate in these other things, but what she gets out of this time not only fuels her for the time at church, but also when she makes those connections at school, those friends from school that they're able to connect back with our faith community.
I love that. I love that. Anthony, anything to add there?
I think Amelia did a great job summing it up, but we make sure that there's a balance. We show them, hey, we want to support you with these other activities that we know are going to ground you as a person, but it starts with the foundation. I think you used the analogy of what all goes, the big rock, the rock we put in first is that commitment on Sunday, that commitment on Wednesday with youth group and choir, and we'll find another way to be able to fit in the other desirables.
I love that. Yeah, you got to get the big rock in first. And I love the word balance you use because it really is a balancing act. Anything you would add just from our family?
Well, I was just thinking not about our family, but we have friends that were missionaries in Asia. They went over there just as a married couple. They had 3 kids while they were there, came back during COVID. And I'm thinking, man, this must be so much better. Like you have your parents to help, you know. You were in this rural area in China, and she was like, parenting in America is so complicated. She's like, it was so much culture shock for her because, you know, in the mission field, it was just raising her kids, ministering to people. And then it was just very eye-opening to me that it was actually easier to parent on the foreign mission field than it was here.
Yeah.
Because we just add so many things, and it's just too much to keep up with.
Yeah. I think it's good to recognize that. And I think Jared was saying that too from a young age. I mean, the struggle is real, right? Like these things push and pull at you, and the world will squeeze your priorities to a place of misalignment if you let it. And so let me just challenge you in your groups, watching this and at home as a family, just take some time today to talk about this. You know, have some conversations about, you know, what trophies one day are you going to be dusting off, you know, out of the garage that represented what you were really about during the season of your life when you're raising a family. So thank you for joining us for session 3 of Flourishing Family. We hope to see you back next week for session 4.